breaking story that's just come in from the south of France, where in two separate incidents in southern France, according to the latest update that we have got, one person has reportedly been killed in the shootout. The incident took place after a gunman took hostage at a supermarket in the nearby town of Trebes. The French Interior Ministry, meanwhile, has released a statement saying, and I quote, "The police intervention is underway at Trebes in Aude, and also the priority is to intervene and also provide with immediate sort of dissolution of the crisis, of the hostage crisis that is presently unfolding." So the latest information that we've got is that one person is in fact being killed. There are twin incidents of shooting that have taken place in the south of France. Now, one person has been killed in the shooting, and more information is, of course, expected on this incident. So a hostage situation is unfolding. It's not very clear as to how many people have taken hostage. And also there were early initial reports that had come in which said that perhaps it was the ISIS that was behind this attack that has taken place in the southern part of France. This is yet another instance when France is in fact being targeted by terrorists. Now, it is at this point of time a gunman who's said to have taken hostage. It is not very clear as to how many people have in fact been taken hostage, but one person has been killed in the shooting is what has been confirmed. So these are the visuals that we are getting of the area where the shooting has taken place. The police has completely cordoned off the area. And for more on this, we are joined in by my colleague Aisha Sindhu. Aisha, what's the latest on the story?
Right, Saleh, reports now suggesting that one person has been killed in that supermarket shooting attack in the south of France. This is a town called Trebes, which is near the town of Toulouse in southern France. Now, initial reports had told us that the Islamic State has taken responsibility for this attack. We are still trying to determine whether or not these claims sometimes are taken prematurely by terrorist organizations to just as a reminder of, or rather to put out a presence in an area. Remember, France has already been under siege, so to speak, by terrorist organizations over the last 4 or 5 years. The terror alert in the country remains high, and this is the initial information that's coming out of Trebes in France. Two shooting incidents, one person killed.
And also, do we have any information at all, Aisha, as to how many people may perhaps have been taken hostage in this case?
No such information or confirmed reports right now, Saleh, on those details. We're still trying to get a bit more on the demography also of Trebes to understand how many people actually live in this town. But as always, when it comes to any sort of incident involving, claims by a terrorist organization, it is being treated with the utmost caution by French police and French security agencies. There have been a number of incidents in France. There was, of course, the attack on the Bataclan Sporting Stadium and multiple others since then, including one on Bastille Day in Nice. So the terror situation in France is always a tricky one, and perhaps one of the reasons why the terror alert system is still on high.
Absolutely, indeed. Now, Aisha, we were talking in terms of who has taken responsibilities. It is extremely speculative at this point of time. There was information that ISIS may have taken responsibility for the attack. Now, France is, of course, no stranger to incidents of this nature taking place in the past. Talk to us a bit about, the incidents that have happened in the past and as to why France has been targeted repeatedly over and over again in the recent few years.
Sure. Saleh, France has had, of course, brushes with this kind of terrorism, small incidents and, of course, large-scale ones as well in the past, which has, of course, led to, France being looked at as I wouldn't use, it would be unfair to use the word a favorite, but has become a hub, so to speak, of terrorist activity. France is also a country where free speech and freedom of speech is given utmost priority. There have been instances for example, a very popular magazine, Charlie Hebdo, taking on very irreverent tones when it comes to topics of religion. There was, of course, a particular cartoon that was published on its cover once, which was considered anti-Islamic. It has therefore become, let's say, a favorite, so to speak, of terrorist organizations when it comes to attacks of these kind.
Absolutely, indeed. And do we have any information at all about the gunman, Aisha? Because it is still early hours in terms of what has happened. The attack, we're given to understand, started at about 11:15 in the morning, local time in France. Any information at all as to who could be behind this incident? And are there two gunmen, or is it just one individual who's gone on a shooting spree at two separate locations?
Again, Saleh, we don't really have clear details on the number of gunmen involved. This is a developing situation taking place in a small town in the south of France. We are relying on local media reports to get as much information and as quickly as possible across to our viewers. At the moment, what we can confirm is that one person has been killed in the shooting. We can't even be certain if this is the policeman who was wounded, reports of which came out at the start when this news broke. Right now, what we're given to understand from local media reports is this, that there was an incident involving an individual and police. That same individual ran away and made his way into a supermarket, and that is where the situation sort of developed into something else, which we are trying to gauge.
Absolutely, indeed, Asha. And also considering the debate that is going on in Europe in terms of immigration, how is this likely to impact the politics in France itself?
I'm sorry, Saleh, can you repeat the question?
My question was, considering that immigration is such a big topic, and considering one of the other leaders, who was defeated by Macron, Marine Le Pen, she has been an advocate stating that immigration is one of the reasons as to why incidents of this nature take place across several parts in Europe. How is this likely to impact the discourse on immigration in Europe after this incident?
Well, absolutely. I mean, the French election saw, let's say, a pitting of two ideologies. One that was a populist, a rabid nationalist narrative, which was championed by Marine Le Pen. Her father, of course, another famous politician in France who has...
Absolutely, indeed, Asha. Now, we are getting some information which not one but two people perhaps may have been killed. These are reports which are just trickling in. This, remember, is a developing story that is unfolding in a place called Trebes in France. Now, it is not very clear as to what the motive of the gunman was. We're given to understand that there is some sort of a hostage-like situation that is presently underway. And also, according to the local media reports that have come in, we are given to understand that the police have completely surrounded the supermarket where this gunman is presently said to be lodged, and there are no other people at this point of time within the supermarket. These are unconfirmed reports which are in fact trickling in. And Asha, if I can bring you in on this. Now, France, over the course of the last few years, there is this debate, one, on immigration and also the increasing number of attacks that have taken place, especially in France. It does not happen with such frequency in other European nations. And considering that France is such a huge, immigrant population, well over 10% of the French citizens are said to be people who have immigrated into the nation. How is this likely to play out in terms of the French politics? Will Macron still have the face to come forth and say that, look, the immigration policy that he has in France is still the one to proceed with?
Well, that's an interesting point, Saleh. I'm not sure if an incident of this nature will, snowball into a larger conversation on France's immigration policies per se. Remember, there was, of course, this whole conversation that took place during the presidential elections with certain members or certain opponents of Emmanuel Macron talking about tougher stances on immigration. However, at this point, to say whether or not this is going to snowball into a political slugfest, it's a bit premature. We'll have to wait and watch to see how it develops. But having said that, Emmanuel Macron and all other candidates during that presidential run-up were very clear about the fact that France comes first and the security of its citizens comes first. Whatever steps need to be taken to that effect will be employed by France, which is why perhaps the security alert remains so high till now. As far as your question about immigration migration, and the debacle, so to speak, when it comes to European countries in dealing with influx of refugees and immigrants from other parts of, let's say, Northern Africa, for instance. France, remember, has been a colonizing power in the north of France for a very long time, and it's a dark chapter in France's history. It has therefore been, let's say, a little lenient to the allowing immigrants from Northern Africa to come into the country in the past. That has been something that a lot of leaders have been, hauled over the coals over. But right now, of course, there is growing concerns about Islamist terrorism in France, something that it continues to deal with.
Absolutely, indeed, Asha. Do continue to stay on with this. Meanwhile, there is information that is in fact being reported in the local French media, where according to the mayor of Trebes, who's given out a statement, Mayor Eric Menassi reportedly has said that it is the supermarket butcher who's in fact been killed. The gunman was reportedly alone inside the supermarket along with a member of the France's security forces. Now, this is information that is coming in, and also according to numerous reports of some of the witnesses who perhaps were at the location. Interestingly, they've said that the gunman shouted Allahu Akbar as he opened fire, and also there are special counter-terrorist prosecutors in Paris who've opened an investigation, and they are treating this incident as a clear case of terror attack. Now, there are twin instances of shooting. It is not very clear in terms of the information that has come in as to whether there are two gunmen involved or is it one individual who has opened fire at two separate locations. And also the whole area, we're given to understand, is under a lockdown. And one of the witnesses has said that the first shots were heard roughly at about 11:10 earlier in the day, in the morning local time. And there are about 200 to 300 policemen who've completely surrounded the supermarket in question where this attack has in fact taken place. Local authorities have tweeted, the French police have of course tweeted that the area is now out of bounds for the police and it has completely been cordoned off. And also there are reports which are coming in that perhaps the gunman had initially tried to run over certain people in a vehicle before he had opened fire at the crowd in the supermarket. Now, this is information that is coming in the local French media, which at this point of time cannot be verified, but this is the situation that is presently unfolding in Trebes in France, in southern part of France. Now, Asha, if I can bring you in on this now, it's said to be two people who've been killed in this instance. Do we at this point of time have any information at all as to what could have been the motive of this gunman?
No information to that end, Saleh. And going by the visuals that we have on our screen, it's pretty apparent that this is a rather small town. It looks like a sleepy small town in the south of France. Again, a bit of information that you just gave to our viewers, about this being a lone attacker, a single person carrying out these attacks. Now, this does, of course, lend credence to this whole theory of lone wolf attacks and, people operating on their own in the cause of, let's say, jihad. In this case, again, unconfirmed reports there saying that the gunman shouted Allahu Akbar before carrying out the attack. Now, these are, almost stock images that come to mind of terror attacks that have taken place at different points in different places in Europe. Having said that, though, this is one of the reasons why Islamist terror groups such as the Islamic State are quick to respond to these bits of information. They have extremely, let's say, they have, of course, social media handlers who are tracking this news all the time. Therefore, it's not surprising for a terror group such as Islamic State to just come out and say that this is, claim this attack in the name of a lone wolf attack. So it's really a lot of piecing together of the puzzle that needs to be done by authorities, by security agencies to determine whether or not this is really a large-scale terrorist attack, an attempt at something like that, or just, an individual trying to gain attention of terror groups like the Islamic State.
Absolutely indeed, Asha. And also considering the fact that the attack has taken place in what appears to be a sleepy, small sort of a town in the south of France, does the location, if it was indeed a coordinated, planned, deliberate attack, does it surprise you that it has taken place in such a low-profile area? Because generally, the logic of a terrorist is to try create maximum impact, capture maximum eyeballs and target some high-profile areas. But that is not what seems to have happened this time round.
Well, yes, and going by what's happened in the past in France itself, it has been big cities that have been brought under siege, be it Paris, be it Nice, be it in Germany, cities like Berlin that have faced attacks such as the Christmas Day market attack in Berlin from 2016. So it is surprising that this is happening in a small town. Remember, this isn't the first time, though, that the south of France has seen a lone wolf attack or a single attacker, taking or creating a situation such as this one. This has happened in the past as well, which makes one wonder as to, really speaking, how the Islamic State could so quickly decide to claim this ongoing situation. As you mentioned, of course, reports now telling us that there is a possibility that the butcher of the local supermarket is the one who's been killed in this incident. We're still trying to get more details, of course, on the number of hostages in the situation.
Absolutely, indeed, Asha. Do continue to stay on with this. So this is a developing story at this point of time. This is the information that we've got, that where 2 people are believed to have been killed in this developing hostage crisis that is presently unfolding in a small town called Trebes in the south of France.